Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Eukanuba and Spectrum Brands the opportunity to be here with you, especially the team Miquel, Marisol, Waldro, and Jose Luis, who's not here. So thank you. After 3 presentations with a high clinical level, it is a challenge to change the style, and I will show you I will explain this from a different angle, from the perspective of management, of clients, service design, from the perspective of business opportunities that can be implied in all this issue of canine longevity. I'll start first what we do in VMS. This is not advertising, which would be also good, but just to remind you where I am getting this data from. In VMS, we have a network with 700 practices from Spain, different types of practices and different locations in Spain that contribute with financial and medical information to a database that they can use with receiving some management indicators. So we provide financial information, but we also have the ability to make some studies that are, I wouldn't say medical, but based on epidemiological data, based on breeds, etc. So today you will see some new information from studies that had not been published yet, and this is the source. The first question that we thought of when we received the invitation for this presentation was, what was the picture that the clinics are seeing in Spain? What population in terms of age? What's the age of dogs that come to our practices? This is based, as I've said, on a wide sample data from 400 clinics, and we have analyzed the changes from 2004 to 2014 for 368,000 patient histories. And this that you can see here, this first one, this is the population pyramid of 2011. You have different colors for puppies, adults, and senior patients. I'd like to emphasize that the average age of patients that you would see in 2011 was 5.1 years old. And I'd like to remember that average age, you know that in statistics, an average brings a good deal of information but tells you nothing. It's like if you are with one hand in the fridge and the other hand in the oven, and you are warm. So what's interesting is to study the distribution of data. So what we can see that we have a 27% of puppies, and also this distribution between senior patients and adults. When we see the same pyramid 4 years later, or 3 years later, in 2014, what we can see is that the average age is a little bit higher, it's 5.3, and what's most important for me is puppies. It used to be at 27% in 2011, and now they are 3.5 points less, about 23%. And a qualitative interpretation would be that this might be related with the financial situation, with the economic situation. 2012 and 2013 have been the worst years in financial terms for clinics in Spain. The situation in Spain was very hard. The VAT was increased, so we've seen less puppies during these years. Now I'll show you a pyramid, population pyramid of a specific breed, which is an emerging breed, a breed that's in fashion in these years. And, this breed is the French Bulldog. We can see that we see a lots of green and blue, and the average age is 3.5. This is for 2014. Well, this is an emerging breed, but there is a slowing trend. As you can see, that puppies are at 22%, and I've told you that the figures for puppies in other breeds in general was a little bit higher. But this is, I can make this more evident if we compare this to a classical breed, which is German Shepherd. Now we say they are not in fashion anymore. You don't see as many German Shepherds. This is not true. There are more German Shepherds in Spain, but the shape of the pyramid is different. What do we see? We see many more older dogs, and the mean age is 4.7 compared to 3.5 in the case of French Bulldogs. So you always try to find out which are the most popular, the top 10 of breeds in Spain. That will be interesting to compare this with our colleagues from other countries to see if we have the same breeds here as in other countries. So the star breed is the mixed breed. And this is good news because, as we can see, that these dogs live longer. So this is a win-win situation. So they will be the leading breed. Then the Yorkshire Terrier. See this great dog? There he is in number 2. And still growing, because what you can see in red here are decreasing compared to 2011. As you can see, Yorkshire Terrier is leading and growing. This is a percentage out of 100 dogs that present to these clinics. Then German Shepherd, second breed, then Labrador Retriever, French Bulldog, Cocker, also decreasing, Poodles and Cocker decreasing, and some emerging stars like Chihuahua. I think that the growth is like a 30%. How far the senior population, dogs over 7 years of age, is relevant for you guys, both in terms of patients and in terms of impact on revenues? The sample here was slightly different because the most important patient, in my view, in Spanish clinics is someone called various customers or over-the-counter sales. So for most of you, what we sell on the counter, you don't identify them with a specific owner or a specific dog, but you call it various customers or over-the-counter sales. So because of this, when we try to make these type of studies in order to know how important senior patients are for you guys, if you're not working with samples that identify all transactions made, you lose this information. So in order to do this, what we did is, out of our 700 clinics, we took like 90 clinics where the 95% of all sales were identified with the name of a patient and the name of a customer. And this way we were able to find out what percentage of revenue came from older dogs, from senior patients. And this came for 24,000 dogs from about 80 clinics. What we can see here is the percentage of patients, so in numerical terms, how important they are. As you can see, senior is 34% of the dogs that you see, and underneath you can see the impact on revenue in a mesh pattern. You can understand that the spending is higher for senior dogs. You can see that for every 100 euros that we are receiving in clinics corresponding to dogs, seniors account for 23 euros out of 43 euros out of 100 euros. So they are really relevant for you guys. Now, longevity, is it increasing? So we all get the feeling that dogs live longer now. But how far can we see on quantitative data? What we've done is during the years 2010 to 2015, we have analyzed the age at death for 90,000 dogs that passed away in 401 Spanish clinics between these years. So for each of these patient histories, we have checked the date of birth, and then we have registered the date of death. This way we know the longevity, and we also register the cause of death. So number one is that we can actually see that the mean age at death of dogs has increased to 10.2. I think the data presented by Dr. Wadrow have been very interesting and are very similar to these ones. She mentioned something like 11 years. In Spain, we are seeing an increase in longevity. This is point number one. Another question is, although it is not directly related with this, is euthanasia. I don't know if you wonder that during times of crisis, there were more dogs being euthanized compared to before. There was this feeling on the market. According to our data, we cannot confirm this. What we've seen is that euthanasia as a cause for death in clinical data accounts for 40% of cases. In this software, you enter the cause of death. Sometimes you write euthanasia, sometimes run over by a car, attack from another dog. And the group for euthanasia, that in 2010 was about 40%, in 2014 stays in 40%. Of course, we don't have enough information about these euthanasias. What do they actually represent? But in general, we're not seeing more euthanasia than before, which is good news. A question here is that there is a breed mixed effect. You can say, if you're telling me that there are more Chihuahuas than before, and we've heard that Chihuahuas live longer, maybe this data here is not related with an improvement of well-being or that we are doing things better, but it has to do with the population of breeds. But this is not so. We checked these 98,000 dogs dead over these years, and we grouped them according to breed. And what we saw is that in all breed groups, both for mixed groups, that by definition is not a breed size that could be related to small, medium, or big size, there was not higher mortality. So the dogs that were dying in 2014 were older than those dogs that died in 2011. There were some curious aspects here, like medium-sized breeds in our study are very close to small breeds, but what we see is that it seems that medium-sized dogs live a little bit longer than small breed dogs. I don't know if we can rely on this because it depends how do you classify a Cocker Spaniel or a Schnauzer. Is it a small breed or a medium-sized breed? But when you compare large breeds with mixed breed, we can see clearly that there's a difference in longevity that has been confirmed by other studies that we've seen here today. So I go back to the previous slide of the breeds, and you can see the growth rates comparing 2011 to 2014. In the case of Chihuahua, in medical terms, there are not many, but they are strong. They are growing in a 34% compared to 4 years ago. But German Shepherds, they are still an important group, but they have decreased. Cockers, they are decreasing a lot. The next question is, there is a feeling, which I think is not confirmed yet, about the importance of loyalty, of customer loyalty. There's a basic question here that if a customer stays with you for 7 years, in cumulative terms, has spent a lot with you. But the question is, if a customer that has been with you for 7 or 8, 9 years, in the 10th year is spending more compared to the 9th year, and the 9th year he spent more compared to the 8th year. So the relevant question here, is there an incremental pattern of spending when the patient has been with us for a longer time? And the answer is yes. We have been able to measure this with data with this smaller sample of 24,000 dogs, and what we have done is from 2010 to 2014 we have analyzed in each of these dogs how long they had been with their clinic. Some of them had been 2 years, some of them had been 5 years, and some of them had been 10 years with their practice. And we have calculated the average spending in a year of these customers with their clinics, and we can see it's a typical linear reaction, and this is the perfect result that anybody carrying out a study wants. And this is impressive because the message here is that on average a patient that has been with you 14 or 15 years, which I know there are not many, but this is good news because on average they spend almost 500 euros with you in a year, which is 3 times what dogs that have been with you for 1 year spend. So there is actually an incremental pattern in time. So loyalty is not only a concept of marketing, but it is actually important to maintain these patients in time. In this graph, we can calculate another figure. I know this is not a not very appealing concept, which is, in English, the lifetime value of a client. This is not very romantic, but what it means is the financial value of the relationship with a client in time during the lifespan of a dog. So if you maintain a client during 14 or 15 years, that will represent 4,000 or 5,000 euros over this period of time. We can see here it increases this way the accumulative revenues, and if we also bear in mind, if we wanted to calculate the margin or the benefit, the profit that we get out of these clients, the only thing that changes is the variable costs, like consumable costs. what the dog eats, etc. So that means if you get a new client and you keep it for 15 years in terms of profit, that will represent about 3,000 euros. So the reward for being able to get loyalty on the part of the client is about 3,000 euros. If in addition you think that a client that has been with you for 14, 15 years is saying good things about you in the word of mouth, telling other people that you are a good clinic, so we could say if he's bringing 10 more clients, the contribution profit by client, that means that a good relationship with a customer could generate a net profit of 30,000 euros. So people working on communication, they say that people like us in a conference like this, we will go home with one message of one image. So I'm telling you about loyalty. So I want you to show you this image, this appealing BMW, red BMW, which costs about 30,000 euros, so that the image and the message that you get home that a relationship, a long-term relationship with a client represents 30,000 euros. And this is neither good nor bad. It's not just talking money, it's just a resource, a metaphor that I want to use for you guys to remember this. When you get to your car on Monday, you would think back about this and say, this is why I'm treating this client good. However, this is a long-term game. This is a marathon. If you want to get this BMW in 3 years, what happens? I'm talking about overselling. If you are trying to sell too much things that the client does not need, if you need to push sales to the client, if you are obsessed with the BMW, if you are doing things not for medical reasons but just for getting a BMW, you probably get this. Because at the end of the day, customers are not stupid. They're able to judge us, and they know what we want. If we want to treat the dog well, or we want a BMW. So if we're not thinking of the BMW and we're doing what we should be doing, at the end, eventually we get the BMW. But if we are thinking of the BMW, what we get is this, is the opposite, the opposition between short-term view and long-term view with the client. One question. This incremental pattern of revenues moving from 150 euros to 450, do you think this is based on products or based on services? What do you think? For example, a dog that has been with you for 15 years is spending 3 times as much because they're buying 3 times as many products or 3 times as many services. What's your feeling? Both? Well, not both. It's service in a 95%. As you can see, the revenue pattern based on products is going up, but is stable. But out of these 450 euros, 400 represent services. This is the incremental line, actually. What does this mean? This is a reality that is good to know, but in terms of opportunities, it brings us to a question. Why are we able to triple revenues based on revenues and not based on products? That will be the first question for you guys. Second question, this clear incremental pattern with services, why do you think this happens? There's an increase of the number of transactions or an increase of the cost of transactions. So are they spending more on services because instead of seeing us 3 times a year, they come to us 10 times a year? Or is it because these 3 times a year, instead of 50 euros, they spend 150? What do you think? Well, it's an increment in the number of transactions. They come to see us. If before they were visiting us like 3 or 4 times a year, now they're visiting us 8 times a year. So the increase in revenue with senior patients is due to services and also is related to an increment in the number of transactions. So it is strange that we are losing opportunities with the products, because if they are visiting us more times a year, it doesn't make sense that this is not translated in an increase in the purchasing of products. Well, let's move to the conclusions. And then I have some provocation time. A summary. We see more and more senior dogs in our clinics. Nowadays, they represent 50% of your revenues, so they are very important for you. Second question, why is this? This is a combination. On the one hand, there's a better quality of life, a better medical care, and also there's some breed effect. I will be using the English slide. Dogs that have been for a longer time with us spend more in our clinic. And now some provocation, some questions that I want to discuss with you guys. The first one is in terms of the way we define our services. And now think in medical terms. Does it make sense that a visit for a practice for a 15-year-old dog is designed in the same way as a visit for a puppy or a 3-year-old dog? The same question for an X-ray visit. I don't know, because I'm not a clinician. Should it be designed in the same way, this X-ray visit for an old dog or a puppy? How about an ecography? How about the experience of the customer in the waiting room? Should it be the same? How about surgery? When we see our list offer of services to the public, are we talking about surgery in general? Do we talk about senior patient surgery? And I don't care about marketing or about invoicing, but do you think of it differently? Have you talked about this with your team in terms of engineering, process engineering? Have you devoted to some thinking to redefine what a visit or a physical examination, a blood analysis test, how they should be for a senior dog? Of course, you would say, okay, this is clear, this is common sense, we all do this. I don't know if all veterinarians in your clinic do it the same way. I don't know if you have a protocol, a pattern, or a design of service that's different for senior dogs, because if my dog is 13 years old, I would like to go to a clinic where they do things differently for these dogs that compared to puppies or for 3-year-old dogs. A second thought, and this is strictly marketing, imagery. This is the image of your communication material. If I just told you that most of the euros that you get come from older dogs, what kind of images are you using on your communication, on your website? 50% of your images are of senior dogs, or what we can see on your website are puppies. Also on the leaflets, on the photographs you have in your center, in your clinic. I don't know if it's smart to base your communication on puppies when most of the revenue comes from senior dogs. Imagine what could happen if a competitor of yours would be being more smart in this communication aspect. People like to go to places where they think they know how to take care of people like them in their situation. If you're going to the doctor and you're in the waiting room and the other people there, you think, these people don't look like me, they're not like me, so you don't like it. The same thing happens with dogs. If all the messages that you see in the waiting room are for puppies and there's no message for seniors, you might be losing an opportunity. Another question, which is a more elaborate, maybe I've gone too far with this one. Is there any geriatric clinic or practice in your town? Well, I don't know. Probably there are not this type of clinics in a country like Spain, where we have 5,000 clinics. What should be better, to open a clinic would be 101, 1001, just another one, or to innovate in terms of marketing? I mean, opening a geriatric clinic, you might say, okay, now this guy's going nuts saying this. He's talking about geriatric clinics for dogs. But now I'm just launching an idea that we use a lot in companies when you want to analyze to find out if an idea is stupid or not. This thought is that if in your town some crazy guy opens a geriatric clinic for dogs and cats in a kilometer radius from your clinic, would that be a concern for you? If you say, I don't care what he does, okay, then you're fine. But if you are kind of concerned about this, then you should start thinking if you should do something in the same way. And this is a very simple technique that I encourage you to use it. For anything, whenever you're thinking about changing something, doing something, making a decision, just pose yourself this question: would I care if a competitor of mine would do it? If you don't care, maybe it's not relevant. If you would care, if you would be concerned about it, then you should do it. So, for some years we've seen in fashion the cat-friendly practice, the cat-friendly practices. We've heard a lot about this, but how about senior-friendly practices? Why not? In Spain, there's a 20% of cats and a 50% of revenues come from senior dogs. If you want to be friendly to anyone, then be friendly to senior dogs, and then you would care about cats. Maybe in your specific market, cats are more important, but why not making your practice senior-friendly or geriatric-friendly? Maybe we should talk with clients to see if they understand what a senior dog or a geriatric dog is. Because we are dealing with 7 as the magical number, that means when you are a senior, and maybe this is not in line with the perception of the client. Maybe geriatric senior is not the best term. So I think if you want to do something in this line, you could see what they are doing in the geriatric residences or the retirement homes for the elderly. I don't know exactly what term they use. They talk about combining independence with first quality medical treatment, medical care. And finally, 2 ideas. If we are seeing that there is an incremental pattern of spending, and a client that has been for up to 15 years with us is spending more money, my question is, maybe loyalty programs should have an incentive for people that have been longer with us compared to customers that have been with us for a shorter period of time. This is what insurance companies have always done with insurance of your car. The longer you've been with them, you get a better deal if you have no accidents. So why not creating a system that's able to maintain these clients? Because if this guy is going to spend 500 euros a year, why not give him an incentive in my pricing scheme to try and maintain this client? This is another thought. And the last one is related with wellness plans. And this is related with the previous presentations by Dr. Watro and Carmichael, related with nutrition. Why do we create wellness plans? Why are they in fashion? And what do they focus on? They focus on vaccines and parasite treatments. And in theory, what's our interest? Why do we do this? In theory, is the wellness of the pet. Why would you do this? I do it because I want pets to have a better life, to provide a better care for them. So if they're telling us that caloric restriction accounts for a 40% in the difference in longevity, then nutritional management is probably one of the most important factors. How is it possible that we are designing wellness plans that do not include nutritional management? I don't understand this from a financial point of view, because nutrition accounts for a good deal of revenues, but also I don't understand it from a medical revenue. Why focus on vaccines and parasites and then just forget about nutrition? If we are seeing that nutrition has a greater impact on longevity, it's good for the pet, it's good for us in the short, in the medium, and the long term. So I will encourage those of you who are already working with wellness plans to work, to collaborate with the companies, with your managers, to find a way to include nutrition into these wellness plans, because it makes sense. It clearly makes sense. And of course, there might be some reasons why you are not doing it, but there's a great opportunity there, so you should think about it and try and go for it. This is all I had to say. This is the end of my presentation. Thanks for your attention, and I think we have some time for questions and answers.